Have you ever thought that you might be dying inside without even realizing it? That with each passing day you are moving further away from who you truly are until one day you wake up and no longer recognize the person in the mirror? There is something within you that no achievement, no relationship, no material success can fill. It is a void that grows silently like a shadow lengthening as the sun sets on your soul. And today I will show you why this happens and how Carl Jung discovered the most brutal truth about our modern existence. If you have ever found yourself questioning whether the life you are living is truly yours, if you have ever felt that you are playing a role you did not choose, then get ready. Because what you are about to discover may completely change the way you see yourself. Imagine for a moment your daily routine. You wake up, get ready, put on clothes that suit your social role, smile at people you barely know, and respond, "I'm fine," when asked how you are, even if inside you are collapsing. You post on social media a curated version of your life, a version that even you don't recognize as true. And at the end of the day, when you remove all this performance, when you are alone with your thoughts, something doesn't add up. There is an unsettling feeling that you are living someone else's life, as if you were an actor who forgot they were acting and now can't get out of character. This feeling has a name, and Carl Jung identified it as one of the main causes of modern human suffering. In 1913, Jung was what anyone would call successful. He had a brilliant career as a psychiatrist, was internationally recognized, had a structured family, money, and social status. In the eyes of the world, he had won at life. But inside, something was profoundly wrong. He felt as if he was suffocating, as if his own life were a golden prison he couldn't escape from. It was in this moment of crisis that Jung made a discovery that would forever change our understanding of human nature. He realized that he had become a slave to what he called the persona, the social mask we wear to adapt to the world, to be accepted, to function in society. But here's the part that will give you chills. This mask is not just something you wear when you leave the house. It becomes you. It infiltrates so deeply into your identity that you lose touch with who you really are underneath. You become the performance, and the performance becomes you. Think about the people around you. How many of them do you truly know? How many of them truly know you? Not the version you present at work, with family, on social media, but you yourself, with your contradictions, your fears, your deepest and unconfessed desires. The truth is, most of us live in a constant state of performance. We wake up and we start acting. We choose the right words, the right expressions, the right reactions for every situation. And we do this so automatically that we no longer notice when we are being authentic or merely following a social script. Jung observed that his most balanced patients were often the most tormented internally. People who never lost their composure, who always had the right answer, who seemed to have everything under control. On the outside, they were examples of success and stability. On the inside, they felt empty, disconnected, as if they were living someone else's life. And here is Jung's most disturbing discovery. The more perfect your social mask, the farther you get from yourself. Every time you choose the right answer instead of the true one, every time you smile when you should cry, every time you say "I'm fine" when you are falling apart inside, you are digging deeper into the chasm between who you are and who you pretend to be. But why do we do this? Why do we consciously choose to distance ourselves from our own essence? The answer is simple and terrible. Because we are afraid. Afraid of not being accepted, afraid of being judged, afraid of discovering that we might not be as good as we would like to believe. So we create an improved version of ourselves. A version that meets social expectations, fits established standards, and doesn't bother anyone. And gradually this version takes over until one day we wake up and realize we have lost touch with who we really are. The cruelest part is that society not only allows this masquerade, it encourages it. From childhood we are taught to behave, to be polite, to not cause problems. We learn that certain parts of ourselves are unacceptable, so we hide them, deny them, suppress them. And what remains? An edited, filtered, socially acceptable version of who we really are. Jung called this the inflation of the persona, when the mask becomes so dominant that you completely lose contact with your true nature. It's as if you are an actor who has played the same role for so long that you've forgotten what you were like before stepping on stage. And the scariest part? This isn't just an abstract psychological problem, it has real consequences in your life. When you are disconnected from yourself, your choices are not truly yours. You choose careers that don't fulfill you because it's what's expected. You get involved with people who don't understand you because it seems right. You live a life that doesn't belong to you because you've forgotten what yours was. The existential void you feel is not a flaw. It's not weakness. It's not something you can resolve with more achievements or distractions. It's your soul screaming, trying to tell you that you are on the wrong path, that you are living someone else's life. Jung discovered this in the most brutal way possible. He had to go through a deep crisis, a psychological collapse that almost drove him mad, to realize that his entire successful life was a lie. He was being crushed by the weight of his own mask. And maybe you are going through the same thing right now. Maybe you have reached a point where you can no longer sustain the performance. Maybe you feel that something fundamental is wrong, even if you can't put your finger on what it is. If this makes sense to you, if you have ever found yourself questioning if the life you are living is truly yours, comment here, I recognize this in myself, because recognition is the first step to escaping this golden prison we've built around ourselves. Have you ever felt like you are sabotaging your own life without understanding why? As if there is an invisible force within you actively working against your best interests. Today I will reveal the most disturbing discovery Carl Jung made about the human mind. Everything you deny in yourself does not disappear. It transforms into something much more dangerous, a psychological entity Jung called the shadow, which may be controlling your life in ways you cannot even imagine. If you have ever wondered why you always choose the wrong relationships, why you sabotage your own opportunities, or why you feel inexplicable rage in certain situations, prepare to discover the truth that few dare to face. But first, answer something honestly. How many times have you found yourself doing exactly the opposite of what you knew you should do? How many times have you exploded in anger and then thought, where did that come from? How many times have you self-sabotaged just when things were going well? These are not coincidences. They are not lack of willpower or moments of weakness. It's your shadow operating. And it is much more intelligent and powerful than you imagine. Jung discovered this by observing his most balanced patients, people who would never admit to feeling anger, envy, lust, or any impulse they considered unacceptable. These people had constructed an identity so purified, so proper, that any trace of human imperfection was immediately denied and repressed. But here is what Jung realized. These perfect people were the most tormented. They lived in destructive relationships, made terrible financial decisions, had secret addictions, or simply sabotaged themselves in ways they couldn't even explain. It was as if there were an unseen force working against them. Imagine a woman who prides herself on never feeling envy. She has built her entire identity around being generous and happy for the success of others. But unconsciously, she always chooses friends who belittle her, always accepts jobs where she is undervalued, always puts herself in situations where she is the underdog. Why? Because the denied envy is transformed into an unconscious force, compelling her to always be in an inferior position. Or think of the man who sees himself as peaceful and controlled, who would never admit to having aggressive impulses. But observe his choices. He always gets involved in online arguments, always starts conflicts in traffic, always chooses jobs in highly competitive and hostile environments. His denied aggression didn't disappear. It found indirect ways to express itself. Jung realized that the more we try to be good according to our moral standards, the more powerful our shadow becomes. It's like trying to push a beach ball underwater. The more force you exert, the more violent its reaction when it breaks free from your control. The shadow is not just the negative aspects we repress. It includes any part of our personality that we reject, even the positive ones. Do you know people who deny their own intelligence, beauty, talent? These rejected qualities are also part of the shadow and manifest through self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, or the inability to recognize and use their own gifts. But here is the most frightening part. Your shadow knows you better than you know yourself. It knows exactly what your weaknesses are, your deepest fears, your unmet needs, and it uses this information against you. Think about your romantic relationships. How many times have you been attracted to people you knew weren't good for you? How many times have you ignored obvious red flags? This is not bad luck in love. It is your shadow choosing partners who will confirm your negative beliefs about yourself, who will punish you for the parts of yourself you reject. Jung observed that his patients frequently engaged in relational dynamics that replicated precisely the aspects of themselves they hated most. The person who denied their own manipulation always ended up with manipulative partners. Those who rejected their own emotional needs always got involved with emotionally unavailable people. And it doesn't stop there. Your shadow also influences your career choices, your friendships, even your hobbies and interests. It has its own agenda, and that agenda rarely aligns with what you consciously want for your life. The cruelest part is that the more you try to be perfect, the stronger your shadow becomes. Every time you reject an impulse, a feeling, an aspect of your personality, you are feeding a force that will work against you for years, perhaps decades to come. Jung discovered this firsthand during his 1913 crisis. He had constructed an impeccable professional identity, the brilliant psychiatrist, the respected intellectual, the exemplary family man. But behind this facade were parts of himself he completely rejected. His mystical intuition, his wild creative impulses, his thirst for experiences that society would consider inappropriate for a man of his standing. These rejected parts did not disappear. They organized into a powerful psychological force that began sabotaging his successful life. He started having disturbing dreams, fantasies that scared him, impulses that completely contradicted his public image. It was his shadow demanding the price of denial. And here is the revelation that will change your perspective on all your past failures. You were not attacked by external forces. You didn't have bad luck. You are not weak or self-destructive. You were sabotaged by parts of yourself that you refuse to recognize and integrate. Every failed relationship, every missed opportunity, every time you made the wrong decision, even knowing what the right one was, all of this was your shadow operating, desperately trying to be seen, recognized, integrated. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the guardian of vital parts of your personality that you rejected out of fear, shame, or social conditioning. It contains not only your negative impulses, but also your creative power, your authenticity, your ability to set boundaries, your life force. Jung realized that the most balanced and fulfilled people were not those who had eliminated their shadow, but those who had learned to recognize it, dialogue with it, and consciously integrate it into their lives. They were not perfect, they were whole. But how do you do this? How do you stop being sabotaged by internal forces you didn't even know existed? How do you transform this destructive energy into creative power and authenticity? If you've made it this far and feel like you finally understand why certain things happen in your life, if you're beginning to recognize the patterns of self-sabotage that keep repeating, write in the comments, "I see my shadow." Because recognition is the first step towards transformation. And if you are ready to go beyond recognition, if you truly want to learn how to work with your shadow instead of being controlled by it, there is a path. By diving deeply into shadow integration work, you not only stop sabotaging yourself, you access parts of yourself that contain immense transformational power. You stop fighting against yourself and begin to use all your psychological energy to your advantage. The link to start this deeper journey of self-discovery is pinned in the first comment. Because it's time for you to stop being controlled by forces you don't understand and start becoming truly whole. And if I told you that the only way to escape the psychological hell you find yourself in is to dive even deeper into it, that the liberation you seek is on the other side of your greatest fear. Today I will show you the most terrifying yet liberating path Carl Jung discovered. The conscious journey into your own inner abyss. Because there is a way out of this psychological prison, but it requires you to face the most frightening creature that exists. Yourself, without filters, without excuses, without masks. If you've made it this far, if you've recognized your social mask and identified your shadow operating, then you are ready for the most important part of this discovery. Get ready, because what I am about to share could completely change the course of your life. The question that remains is, how do you get out of this situation? How do you stop being controlled by internal forces you didn't even know existed? How do you free yourself from a prison you built yourself? Jung discovered that there is no shortcut. There is no magic pill, no quick technique, no simple formula. There is only one path, and that path is the most counterintuitive you could imagine. You need to consciously descend into your own internal hell. He called this process individuation, the path to becoming a complete, integrated, authentic individual. But do not be deceived into thinking this is a gentle or comforting process. It is literally a journey to the center of the earth of your psyche, where reside all the demons you've spent your life trying to avoid. Imagine Jung in 1913 at the peak of his crisis. He had two options: continue trying to maintain the facade of a successful and balanced man, or do something few have the courage to do. Consciously dive into his own nightmares, dialogue with his darkest fantasies, confront every aspect of his personality he had denied all his life. He chose the second path, and what he discovered was both terrifying and liberating. Jung began to record his dreams, not just the beautiful or the ones that made sense, but especially the disturbing, bizarre ones that left him awake at night with a pounding heart. He spoke with the figures appearing in his fantasies as if they were real people. He explored every dark corner of his mind that he had previously preferred to ignore. And do you know what happened? He discovered that these dark aspects of his personality were not monsters trying to destroy him. They were vital parts of himself that had been rejected, abandoned, left to rot in the basement of his consciousness. They had become destructive precisely because they were denied, not because they were inherently bad. But here's the part that will shock you. To become whole, Jung had to accept that he was capable of things he once considered unthinkable. He had to recognize that he felt envy, had violent impulses, was capable of lying, manipulating, being cruel. He had to accept that he was not the good man he had always believed himself to be. And this was the most liberating discovery of his life. Because when you stop trying to be good according to external standards and accept being human according to your inner nature, something extraordinary happens. You finally become free. Consider for a moment the energy you spend every day trying not to be certain things. Trying not to appear needy, not to seem weak, not to seem imperfect. Trying to hide your anger, your sadness, your fears, your inadequacies. How much energy do you burn daily in this performance of perfection? Jung discovered that when you stop fighting against aspects of yourself and start consciously dialoguing with them, they cease to be your enemies and become your allies. Your repressed anger becomes the ability to set boundaries. Your denied sadness becomes emotional depth and genuine empathy. Your hidden fears become wisdom about the real dangers of life. But this does not mean letting loose the instincts or doing whatever you feel like. It means something much more sophisticated. It means becoming aware of all the forces operating within you so you can consciously choose how to express them. The difference between a person controlled by their shadow and a person who has integrated their shadow is simple. The first acts impulsively and then regrets it. The second recognizes the impulses and consciously chooses how to act. Jung observed that the most integrated and powerful people he knew were not the saints who never did anything wrong. They were the people who deeply knew their own capacities for good and evil and made conscious choices about how to live. They knew they were capable of lying, so they valued truth. They knew they were capable of being cruel, so they consciously chose compassion. They knew they were capable of being selfish, so they actively decided when to be generous. But how do you make this journey? How do you consciously descend into your own psychological hell without losing yourself in the process? First, you must stop being afraid of yourself. You must understand that there is nothing within you more powerful than your consciousness, provided you are willing to face everything you find head-on. Start by paying attention to the moments when you get irritated for no reason. These moments are portals to your shadow. Instead of repressing the irritation or rationalizing it, ask yourself, what is this anger trying to show me about myself? Observe the types of people who bother you the most. Jung said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. The characteristics we hate most in others are often those we deny in ourselves. Pay attention to your dreams, especially the disturbing ones. They are letters from your unconscious trying to show you aspects of yourself that need integration. But Jung's most important discovery was this: the existential void you feel is not a problem to be solved. It is a calling. It is your soul telling you it's time to stop living a half-life, to stop denying fundamental parts of who you are. The void is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that you are ready for the most important journey of your life. The journey back home, to yourself, to your wholeness. Jung realized that the most fulfilled people were not those who had achieved the most external things, but those who had made peace with all aspects of their internal personality. They had stopped fighting a constant civil war within themselves. And when you stop fighting against yourself, when you accept being human in all its contradictory complexity, something magical happens. You finally have access to all your energy, all your creativity, all your personal power. Because you are no longer expending energy trying to be someone you are not. The journey of individuation is not easy. It will require courage to face parts of yourself you've preferred to ignore. It will demand honesty to admit things about yourself you never wanted to recognize. It will require humility to accept that you are neither better nor worse than any other human being. You are simply human. But on the other side of this journey lies the only thing that truly matters. The freedom to be who you really are without masks, without performance, without fear. If you've made it this far and feel you've finally understood why you felt so empty, so disconnected from yourself, if you recognize that it's time to stop running from who you truly are and begin the journey back home, to yourself, write in the comments, "I am ready for the journey." Because recognizing that you are ready is the first real step toward transformation. If this content touched something deep in you, if it made you see your life differently, consider subscribing to the channel. Because there is still much more to explore together about the deepest mysteries of the human mind. And leave a like if this was helpful to you. It helps others who are also seeking these answers find this content. Share with someone you know needs to hear this. Sometimes the right information at the right moment can change a life forever.